Welcome, everyone, to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Thank you for listening. We have a good show this week. Jim Miller, author, reporter, podcast host, so much more, wrote the tremendous books on HBO, ESPN, Saturday Night Live. He joins us to talk about some interesting sports media news. Jim shares his insights on what's going on with the NBA TV deals that are coming up and what he thinks will happen, how it will play out with Turner and ESPN, NBC, Apple, and Amazon. We also discuss some layoffs that are coming at ESPN, Sunday ticket pricing from YouTube, and we get into a little bit of succession talk. Oh, and Jim also drops a very interesting, if you're a wrestling fan, he drops a very interesting nugget about the possible future of Monday Night Raw and where that could land. Very interesting stuff there by Jim. And like I said, and we get into some discussion about Succession, since Jim is an HBO expert and he gives us an update on Curb Your Enthusiasm. Following Jim Miller, we have Sal Licata and the Train of Thoughts segment. So stay tuned for that. Before we get to the episode, just a quick reminder, if you missed recent episodes of SI Media with Jimmy Traina, check them out in the archives. Jim Nance was on last week from CBS, Andrew Marchand of the New York Post 2 weeks ago, Cody Rhodes from the WWE 3 weeks ago, Kyle Brandt, Richard Jefferson, Iron Eagle, all recent guests. So go into the archives, check them out, subscribe to the pod, and leave a review on Apple, and we will read it on an upcoming episode. All right, here we go. Jim Miller, followed by Train of Thoughts and Sal Licata right here on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. All right, joining me now, SI Media regular. Had to have him on once I saw what happened with Succession, but we'll talk about a bunch of sports things first. He is author, journalist, podcast host, and all sorts of things. Wrote the book on ESPN. James Andrew Miller. Jim, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. Good to see you. Good to chat with you. Wanted to have you on because there are a lot of things in the sports media world going on that I thought you'd be great to get some insight from. I want to start with what seems to be, it's funny. It was a year ago at this time, well, maybe more like 14 months ago, the NFL broadcaster shuffle was the big sports media story that went on and on and on. And now I'm getting that same vibe from the NBA's future in terms of TV deals. A lot of rumblings. NBC may be back in business with the NBA. Streaming services are going to get involved. Nice timing for the NBA. They had excellent first weekend ratings for the playoffs, right, as this comes up. Let me start with this. I'm going to ask you some specifics. Could you see any scenario where ESPN, Disney, would lose the NBA? You think they're back no matter what?
Look, I mean, there's 5 players involved, right? Despite what David Zaslav said months ago, you have Turner, you have ESPN/ABC, NBC is interested, and you have Amazon and Apple. Does Adam kind of like divide the pie 5 ways? I doubt it. It's possible. It's possible.
So one of those 5 then will be out.
2 of those 5 could be out. I mean, there's no rules here. I think it's clear that they want linear presence. They want streaming presence. Cable, of course, with ESPN or with Turner. But it'll be interesting. I hope that what we're going to see, though, is also a reevaluation of the package itself. I think this is a great opportunity for Adam and the league to take a look, particularly with what's happened with RSNs and local markets and whatever. Maybe they're just all national games. I'm not sure exactly, but I think that this is a great opportunity for a paradigm shift. And if there is going to be a different architecture to the package, then that might mean that you could do it 3, 4, I don't know, possibly 5 ways. But if I'm a streamer, I would want to have the streaming rights to myself. Right. So, and maybe you have a great night that you have it and you own that night. It'll be very interesting. But I think despite what Zaslav has said, he's kind of put some toothpaste back in the tube recently. So that they kind of know that they need it and want it.
So for anyone listening who doesn't know, the Zaslav that Jim is referring to as the head of. So Turner is now Warner Brothers Discovery. I just say Turner. I can't. And he said a couple of months ago that he could see them maybe getting out of the sports business and the
We don't
NBA
really need
business.
it.
Yeah, and now we don't really need it, right? And now, I think he's rethinking that in some way. I wrote about this a little bit today for SI. It would be fascinating if Turner did not renew and re-up, because then Charles Barkley becomes a free agent. And it would be fascinating to see, if the streaming services are involved, they have more money than anyone, Apple and Amazon. NBC would want them. ESPN would want them, but who knows where they go in terms of budget. And then there's the question of, would Charles go solo, or would this, one of the streaming services could bring along the whole crew? They can afford Ernie and Shaq and Kenny. So that, I think, would end up becoming the biggest sports media story of the year if that happened. What do you think?
Well, it's arguably the best shoulder programming there that we has been for a while. It's kind of like a real finger in the eye for ESPN, because ESPN has never been able to get its NBA shoulder programming right. They've gone through so many incarnations, and we can go back to Sage Steele versus Michelle Beadle versus God knows what, and Bill Simmons was on. You can go back way before that even. It's just been a tough thing for ESPN.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure they would be thrilled to get what is, a terrific show. But I just see Turner letting that happen.
It's fascinating from the standpoint of, if Apple or Amazon, especially Apple, if they were in business with the NBA, they would probably give Charles a blank check. And ESPN would want Charles in the worst. I mean, they would have him all over their network every single day on every show. But
assuming Charles wants to work that hard.
Right. Well, that's true too. But Charles has made it clear it's all about money for him. When he had that little thing with Liv, which I don't know if I buy that was totally real, but Charles made it clear he's all about money.
Yes. Well, what a rarity. But I think he also, CNN was sending him some invitations, and that's part of the Warner Discovery Network. So we'll see what happens. But my only point is, I think that you're going to see the NBA in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, nobody thought that there would be enough players to get that increase that Adam wants, but it looks like he's going to get a great CBA, and he's going to get a great TV deal.
I think it'll be, I hate when people compare, if the NBA, let's say they make a deal with Amazon, for instance. I hate when people are going to compare that to the Thursday Night Football. Nothing should be compared to football. And I think this is going to be a very interesting test for sports and streaming from the standpoint of the NFL. People are going to watch the game no matter what channel or streaming service is on, no matter what time, people are going to watch it. A regular season NBA game, I just don't think that's the case. And we're seeing with baseball. Baseball has these deals with Apple and Peacock. You can't get one iota of data on how many people watch those. And my guess is it's because it's nobody. Now, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the NBA on a, Thursday night in November if people are tuning in to watch the Grizzlies and the T-Wolves on a streaming service. People comparing it to the NFL, I think, are not doing a service there.
Yeah, listen, the NFL is America's crack cocaine, as I've said before, and you can't compare anything to it.
So do you have any, if you had a guess, what do you think it ends up being? Do you think it ends up being like two networks and two streaming, one streaming, two networks? What do you think it ends up being?
I think it could be four ways.
Four ways.
I think they could give a NBC, ESPN/ABC, Turner, and then Apple.
Okay.
They
It's
have a
gonna
lot
be
of inventory.
yeah. It'll be. It does sound like NBC is going to get something. They want back in badly. It seems like.
I mean, look, I think that one of the things that you started to see, no matter what people say about budgets and debt and parent company debt and everything else, is sports rights are still important. Still,
Yeah.
sports rights are still critical. Still getting those big increases. I mean, we have a couple deals coming up: NASCAR, Notre Dame, um, WWE, which is going to be fascinating, and so we'll see. But I think that the the dependability. John Skipper used to say, we don't know if Desperate Housewives is going to be on in 5 years. We know there's going to be a Rose Bowl.
Right.
And
Right.
that kind of dependability, especially
Right.
when you're trying to secure a revenue stream years out, I think has been proven very
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. The NBA will they will cash in for sure here. And I think fans, just from a fan perspective, fans are going to like NBC being back in it. They, for some reason, fans have this thing where NBA fans like the NBA on NBC. They've always missed it. And, ESPN and Turner do great. Listen, Turner has the greatest studio show of all time with it. Breen and Van Gundy and Jackson do a great job. But people seem to like that nostalgia play for the NBA on NBC. Sunday, 5:30, they used to play those games. It was always great. I feel like NBA fans miss that. So it'll be very interesting to see how NBC handles everything if they get back into it in
Yeah,
terms of schedule
we're
and
not going
stuff
to know
like
for a
that.
while, but there's
Yeah.
a couple shoes to drop before then. You might be able to look. I don't think any of these companies can afford everything. So I think that we're at a very specific moment in time where these companies are literally triaging and trying to establish what their priorities are and getting ready to pivot just in case they lose something. And then where's that money going to go? But I don't think, unlike the skipper days of ESPN from, 2009 and to like maybe 16 or something, where there was just so much money and you could just flood the zone with cash and make these incredible deals for long-term deals. I just don't think there's anybody out there that has the money to do everything. Look, ESPN can't do everything, and ESPN
Yeah.
is about to go through layoffs, painful layoffs.
You mentioned it, so let's go. I hate talking about this. I really do. I just think, I mean, listen, there's a way to do it that's a respectable way, and we'll do that. But I just, because I've been through it here many times, and it's horrific on every level. And I do think it's interesting that we're in the middle of these talks about NBA rights deals where ESPN is expected to be a player, and then there's layoffs going on, and I think fans get confused by that, but
It happened before with the ESPN and NBA deal.
and they listen, the NBA needs content. I mean, excuse me, ESPN needs content. ESPN needs games. That's what keeps them going. So I don't think it's fair if the ESPN signs some monster deal with the NBA to then say, oh, well, they laid these people off. That's, if they don't have games, they don't have anything. So I feel for ESPN in that situation. Like I said, I hate talking about this, but let me just get you, from what you read across the board, these are going to be pretty significant layoffs. Is that accurate?
I believe so, and I hate it too. And
Right.
I mean, it's just I don't think any kind of analysis can really bring to bear the disruption that these individuals go through. And I mean, I talked to a bunch of ESPNers who were laid off last time, and we've often talked about this, Jimmy, but ESPN is particularly different because you move your family to Connecticut, you put your kids in school, it becomes your home. A lot of people stay there for 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 years. And so when you lose your job and you're out there in the middle, it's really hard. I mean, it's hard anytime you lose your job, but um, I think that we're going to see, I believe, as early as next week, maybe some management layoffs and then talent layoffs. And again, there's like a Darwinian thread to these, particularly the talent layoffs, where people who are very, very popular and do very, very well and get paid really, really well are ironic. Some might find it paradoxical, but they're safer than people who are costing a lot less.
Yeah.
Now, the people who are really, really cheap, I mean, we've said this before, you and I, when we were talking about talent layoffs years ago, but if you're not costing them a lot of money, you're kind of better off. But if you're costing them a sizable chunk and you're not like a Stephen A, you're not like a Van Pelt, you're not like, well, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a bummer. If there's a bright side, and you know, I don't even know if that's the right phrase. We are in a time where there are so many. Listen, you're not going to get the money that you may have been getting from ESPN, but there's so many opportunities. It does seem like with the streaming services getting involved in sports, all these things popping up, FanDuel TV, you know, you're seeing outliers all over the place doing their own thing. So, you know, we've seen it with Kenny Mayne, Trey Wingo. You can still keep it going. It's not the same as being as ESPN, but it does seem like if there ever is a time where you can carve out something for yourself, at least if you need to do that, this is the time.
Yeah, you have to be incredibly entrepreneurial, and it doesn't hurt to have a good agent.
You know, tell me if this is a leap, because I've just thought of this while we were speaking, and it just came into my head. Because I'm thinking about, for a few years there, it looked like a lot of us thought the legalization of sports betting was going to be this huge, huge boom for networks because they were embracing it. It was legalized. I don't think that's panned out at all here. And I wonder if that's a factor in some of the financial issues. Obviously, COVID was a factor and things like that. But I think a lot of these sports entities, networks, websites, I think they all thought they were going to just print money from sports betting being legalized. And I'm not sure that's even come close to happening. Or is that a ridiculous theory?
No, I mean, I doubt if they bet on it to that degree. I mean, look, in ESPN, it's really simple arithmetic. If you have nearly 100 million homes a decade ago or whatever it was, and they're paying an average of $7 or $7.50 a month with increases from there, and you go down to 75 million homes, just do the math. It is unbelievable. And at a time when you're still paying for increased costs. So something's got to give. Yeah. And there's no way that gambling would make up for that gap.
Right. It's amazing. The networks have these financial issues, and then the consumers, the sports fan, are still paying for like 20 different services. The whole thing is, it's a weird time. I mean, if you're a sports fan, you're getting killed with either whether you have cable, whether you have YouTube TV, and then you've got to pay for this streaming service to get this, and you have to pay for Apple to get this, and you have to pay for Amazon.
Wait till Sundays this fall.
Well, that's where I was going. Because
did you see those prices?
Now, can I just say I didn't think the prices were that bad. Let me break it down because I discussed it last week. Jeez. It's basically $50 more than DirecTV was charging. I'm not saying it's not a lot of money, but if you're someone in my position, which is you don't have YouTube TV, so you're buying Sunday Ticket on YouTube as a standalone service. You're not buying the Red Zone because I don't know why you need the Red Zone. If you have Sunday Ticket's $350, and it was a $300 on DirecTV last year. So they're getting you for $50 extra bucks, basically. It's expensive. If you want to do Red Zone with the Sunday Ticket, and then I think one of those prices was like $489 or something like that.
Yeah,
that's crazy, obviously. But you don't need the Red Zone if you have Sunday Ticket. You can watch any game you want.
Yeah, but Red Zone was a great convention. I mean, people liked it, and I'm not sure that a lot of people are going to pay as an extra. I think it's going to be like $125 or something for it.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of ridiculous.
Well, at least Red Zone will still be offered on the cable services, if I'm not mistaken. Like Red Zone channel on FiOS, you'll still be
Right.
able to get that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't.
But
If you're
it's an
subscribing
expensive package.
I've said this before, and maybe I'm a fool. If let's say they said the Sunday ticket was $600, I'd pay it. To me, it's the greatest. It is the greatest thing you can purchase in sports.
I know, but not everybody makes $1 million a year at Sports Illustrated. So,
Well,
like,
let's please. If I made that, I would have had the Sunday ticket the last few years, but I got rid of it because I had to get rid of DirecTV. I don't know. I just think, listen, $350, you get every game every week. I don't think it's outlandish.
well, I mean, it just depends who you're talking to. And I just
Yeah.
think that there are a lot of people out there who are great football fans. By the way, they can't afford to go to the games. And so even if they wanted to go to the games, they can't afford to go to the games. You know, you go to a Rams game. I'm in LA right now. You go to SoFi, the parking is $75-$80.
That's why, and no one complains about that for some reason. Everyone complains about the Sunday ticket. No one's complaining about that, which makes no sense to me.
No, I'm just saying though that people of even moderate means are getting really squeezed.
Oh
now.
yeah.
And
I have. I think I mentioned this. I may have mentioned this recently here. I have a buddy of mine goes to all the Islander, not all, but a lot of Islander games at UBS, the new arena there. A bottle of water is $8.
right.
A bottle of water is $8. To me, that's way more offensive than $350 for Sunday ticket. That's how I look at it. But
Yeah, no,
everyone's like, go ahead.
Yeah, I just think there are a lot of people that are not going to be able to afford $350.
My bigger issue with the YouTube, with Sunday ticket on YouTube than the prices, I would like to see, given their YouTube and not DirecTV, which was terrible, I'd like to see some innovation here. I know that multi-view will probably be a thing, which is good. I'd like to see them in terms of multi-view. They should have it where you can almost choose any amount of, like if you want 4 games on one view, 6 games, 8 games. They must have the technology where they can do that. And the other thing I know that came out is, and some people were mad about this. I didn't think this was unfair. You can use, if you subscribe, you can use Sunday Ticket on 2 different screens. So let's say you're home watching on TV and your significant other wants to watch it on an iPad. If they're out, you get 2 screens. People wanted more. I don't know. I thought that was fair.
Yeah, they're never going to get more. I mean, look, this is what Netflix is doing with passwords. I mean, the companies are very, very concerned about that.
Yeah. And one thing that I know, I get this from a lot of fans. It's never going to happen. Fans have to give up the dream. They're never going to offer single team packages. They're just never going to do that. It's just not going to jive with CBS and Fox and the TV deals. Fans really thought with Sunday Ticket going to YouTube TV, oh, I'm a Cowboy fan, I'm just going to buy the Dallas games. Oh, I'm a Raiders fan. It's never going to happen.
I don't think so. I really, there's just not enough. The economics aren't there.
Yeah. I feel like, isn't it a bummer that economics has to play so much of a role, and we just want to enjoy sports, and everything is
businesses, Jimmy.
It's all about the economics.
I mean, there's a level of greed though that.
Oh,
I mean, I really don't think. I don't think a lot of these sports care about whether or not people can afford to go in person, right, whether they can afford to watch on it's brutal.
Well, let me ask you this. Because I've said this before too, and I'd be very curious for your opinion on this. When it came up a few weeks ago that the NFL was maybe entertaining the thought of Flex for Thursday Night Football on Amazon, and people are outraged. I think what NFL fans need to understand, and please tell me if I'm wrong, the NFL does not care about the person going to the game. All the NFL cares about is the TV viewer. And the NFL is a TV business, and the NFL is there to take care of CBS and Fox and ESPN and Amazon. They are way more, I shouldn't say they don't care. The NFL cares way, way, way more about the TV viewer and their TV partnerships than the fan going to a stadium. Am I wrong?
No, of course.
Right.
Well, of
Like
course.
people upset about Flex on Thursday night. Oh, but what if someone has tickets for the game? The NFL doesn't care about you if you have tickets for the game. They care about getting a good rating for Amazon.
Right. They should care about the players a little more.
Right. That's a separate issue.
And Thursday night football makes me car sick, but that's beside the point.
Oh, elaborate.
No, it's just I think it's a greedy move. I think it's awful for the players. I think it's certainly another revenue stream, but it just doesn't work for me.
I mean, listen, if you pay attention closely, it's pretty amazing. You ask any player, it doesn't matter how old they are, what position they play, what team they are. You ask any player what's the worst thing about the NFL, and they all say Thursday night football. And the league just wants to keep pushing. Now the league is going to let teams be on there twice a season.
The irony is, though, that in some ways the league, it's a risky move for the league because they expose the disparity of talent in the NFL. And so during the first couple of years of Thursday night football, it was like the haves versus the have-nots. And so, there were some brutal games. And the best part was listening to Al Michaels try and pretend, try and make a go of it. But I think that there's a real danger for the league in, having so many different spots that you wind up with these really non-competitive games and boring games. And, what were some of the scores, like 9-6 and 12-6? And it's brutal.
Yeah. And now teams can appear on Thursday night twice a year, so that should be interesting to see how that pans out. Let me ask you about Twitter real quick, because we're taping this on April 19th. Supposedly on April 20th, everyone's check marks are going to go away unless you subscribe to Twitter Blue. As a journalist, I'm just curious, do you think this matters, losing the... I think it's a little bit of a... everyone's freaking out. I think it'll sort of sort itself out. I mean, Elon's clearly a weirdo, but what do you make of this? Are you expecting more anarchy on Twitter?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask because I suck at social media. Yeah. I think I used to have I don't tweet in a lot. I don't tweet enough. I know I don't do it, but I look, Elon's got bigger problems than blue checks. He's, the value of the company has been reduced by more than 50% since he bought it. So right. I think you should be focusing on that rather than blue checks. I don't think there's enough dollars in the world for people spending, was it $5 or $8 a month or something to make up for that.
I've seen some journalists come out and say how important Twitter is for their business, but I'm not sure they'll be that affected by it.
there are a lot of people that go, like if they're trying to do a book contract, they're trying to get a podcast or something. They say, look, I have 300,000 followers on Twitter. Somehow that gives publishing houses or podcast places or something a little bit margin of error because they think they have a built-in constituency. It doesn't always work that way. Everybody who publishes a book like to think that everybody following them on Twitter would go out and buy the book. It just doesn't happen.
Exactly.
From Bill Simmons on down. And so that may be a fallacy or false thinking on the part of the buyers.
Absolutely. You were recently at a conference. Adam Silver was there from the NBA. Nick Khan was there, who's a big player in the WWE. You mentioned earlier on this pod about WWE TV rights deals coming up. I want you to talk to me a little bit about that. I've heard Nick Khan say, SmackDown airs on Fox, Monday Night Raw airs on USA, which is part of NBC. I've heard him say those two networks will have right of first refusal. Not sure I believe that. Are there other companies, though, who would want to get in business with the WWE besides NBC and Fox? Do we know of?
I think so. And I wouldn't be surprised, despite the fact that money is such an issue for them. I wouldn't be surprised if Warner Brothers Discovery wouldn't like a slice of that WWE pie.
Now,
remember, Monday night does not have to be on Monday night. Monday night's a tough night because if you go through the calendar all year
Right.
round, there's sports on Monday night. And you could, if you're Warner Brothers Discovery, you could say, we're going to move it to a different night. We got Thursday night with the NBA or whatever, but we're going to figure out a different night for it. And all of a sudden it becomes, very attractive.
Now, I don't know how closely you follow the wrestling world, but Turner has a
It's at
deal with.
WrestleMania.
Oh, you were. It's so fly. Not the first night.
Yeah, my first time WrestleMania.
Were you there the first night or the second night? Were you there Saturday?
I was there the
Sunday?
second night.
When they screwed over Cody Rhodes, and were you there when Roman Reigns pinned Cody Rhodes? Was the place, or what? Did you leave by then?
No, I was there, but
Give me,
like
what was the
80
vibe in? What was the vibe inside that building though? Because people were ready to riot. It seemed like.
I understand, but listen, right at the start, there were more than 80,000 people there. I've never seen it. I mean, it's incredible.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the Woodstock of body oil or whatever. But it was really intense. I've never been.
I'm going through all these conspiracy theories in my head right now because when Nick Khan joined WWE, he was the guy who made them move their pay-per-views from Sunday night to Saturday night. And now you're telling me, you mentioned Monday Night Raw possibly getting off Mondays. That seems like a total Nick Khan deal, which would be fascinating if that ever happened. And they should get off Mondays because, like you said, there's NFL on Mondays. College football plays their title game on Monday. The NCAA plays on Mondays.
I mean, I have not heard Nick advocate that, but I think my point is that if a buyer comes in and doesn't want Monday night, that Monday night package is Air Mobile. I mean, there's no reason why it has to be Monday night.
Right.
Especially if
now here's the thing about Warner Brothers though. So they're in bed with the WWE competition, AEW. AEW Wrestling has shows on Turner on Wednesday nights and Friday nights. So when you say Warner Brothers could be involved, do you know, I'm sure you're speculating, but would it be in addition to or instead of, or you don't know that?
I don't know, but I know that there are people at Warner Brothers who are interested
in the WWE.
Yeah.
Wow. That would be something. Could that be like a sort of replacement for the NBA too, as well, in a way, I guess, if they lose the NBA, they're going to need something.
Well, if they were to lose the NBA, they certainly would then become, I would imagine, they'd become a pretty big advocate for buying something. That would create quite the auction. Unless it's taken off. I mean, if either Fox or NBC comes in with a preemptive offer that WWE likes, they won't even get a chance.
Right. So okay. Before we get to
Nick was his polished self yesterday in conversations with our buddy John Orand, and it was interesting because there was bunch of his sponsored by CA, so it was a bunch of his former colleagues watching him on stage now and as the CEO of this company. And it's a company that obviously, given the sale, just think of Nick's world right now. He's in an org chart where Ari Emanuel, Mark Shapiro, Dana White, Vince McMahon, Nick. I mean, it's a good thing Nick is, basically Henry Kissinger because there's going to be a lot of shuttle diplomacy required.
What was your reaction with the WWE being sold to Endeavor?
I mean, look, I think CA was working really, really hard to get it to Liberty. And I think that Ari and Mark and Endeavor came in and just blew them away. And, Nick said yesterday, the dreaded word synergy is overused. But I think that from a sales and marketing point of view, taking the UFC and WWE makes sense.
All right, before I let you go, you are not only the man who knows all about ESPN, but you know all about HBO. You wrote a magnificent book about HBO that everyone should check out. The Logan spoilers are coming, so if you don't want Succession spoilers, hit stop now. Did you know Logan Roy was going to die before that episode? When did you, were you watching it live? Give me the Jim Miller experience with Logan Roy kicking the bucket.
I mean, I may have watched it before it aired, But the whole point is that from the very first episode, it's kind of like there's a powerful duality to this. And Jesse Armstrong has done, I think, a magnificent job of pulling it off. Because from the very first episode, there's an inevitability about Logan Roy's death. Not only his age, but because there have been various times where his health was an issue, right? The great shareholders meeting, the big walk in the Hamptons, and so somehow Jesse and the writers' room were able to lure us into this feeling like Logan was inevitable, just healthy, and his health was, going to be taken for granted. And even though they announced before the season started that this was going to be the last season, you kind of feel like, well, wait a second, is it going to be like Tony Soprano at the diner and he's going to freeze in time, or is he going to die? Is maybe the final beat of the show is his death? That wouldn't really work because the whole point is it's Succession. But I don't think a lot of people expected episode 3.
Right.
It was done so well. It was really done so well. And it's a big roll of the dice because I believe, look, I'm more of a Logan Roy fan than most people. I think the kids are atrocious. They are spoiled, entitled. And by the way, I thought Logan's last line to them, basically as a collective, I love you, but you're not serious people. I mean, during that bidding for Pierce, like they're sitting around, well, like what, 8.5, maybe he's doing 9 billion. Let's go. Let's just do 10. Let's just, like, there's no rigorous analysis. There's no anything. And so it's a kind of a big roll of dice to take. It's basically taking the sun out of the solar system when Logan's there. Right. And so I thought episode 4 did a very good job. It was a little claustrophobic, but that was intended to be that way. Yeah. They're in Logan's house. They did a great job of keeping things moving. And I'm always going to miss him, but boy, oh boy, to take him out in episode 3, that is risky.
It is. And like you said, so well done. And what I like too is I like that even as a viewer, you didn't know there for several minutes if he was,
Mark, the direction on that was so great because you really did think for the first couple of minutes, well, this is Logan mindfucking them. Right. And then you have this moment where you actually see from his head down on you see the pressure, you see the pressure on his, but you don't see his face. They waited another 2 minutes until you saw his head and his face. So
that's why it was so well done.
That was just incredibly well done. Now
everyone loves, there's the Jordan versus LeBron argument. Well, just as, popular is the Mount Rushmore of HBO shows. I'm not going to ask you for your Mount Rushmore of HBO shows because I do think it's a dumb way to do it because it's comedy, drama, and sport. But tell me where you put Succession in terms of the HBO shows. Would you say it's a top 3, top 5, top 10? Where would you put?
Are we doing dramas or are we doing dramas and comedy?
Let's just do drama. Let's leave out like Curb and let's do drama only.
And don't forget Veep,
which is a comedy. Yes, no Veep, no.
Larry. No. I mean, from a sheer writing point of view, acting point of view, or whatever. I mean, look, there's been amazing HBO shows, but I think that you have. I mean, obviously, I think this. I'm going to stick to this until I feel otherwise. I mean, Sopranos is always going to be number 1 for me. It's just, there's just never been anything like it. And there's just no point in talking about it. But The Wire and
Game of Thrones,
6 Feet Under, Succession is right up there. It's beautifully written. It's been incredible. And so, look, I hope it finishes well. There have been, in the history of HBO, there have been, I wanted to do kind of like a side piece in the book on it, but it was just not enough space. But if you look at some of the finales, the 6 Feet Under finale, for people who haven't seen it, even if you don't want to watch the whole show, the 6 Feet Under finale was beautiful. It was remarkable television. I happen to love this Sopranos finale. The Wire was great. I mean, so, when you announce it's the end of, obviously the fans had a problem with the last season of Game of Thrones. So that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. But I think that there's obviously a lot of pressure to finish this right. And that speaks to the legacy of the show, in historical terms.
Yeah. I agree with you. Sopranos always be number one. And then it seems like, everyone's The Wire, Game of Thrones, Boardwalk Empire, 6 Feet Under, maybe one or two other ones we're missing in there. But for me, I'm not a Game of Thrones person. So Succession is more my speed. So I love it. I think, and I, like you said perfectly, you're like, oh, they're killing off Logan in episode 3 here. We got 7 to go. But if last Sunday was, any indication, the show's just going to keep rolling. So I don't think there's much to worry about there.
Right. I mean, Succession has a higher bar, though, for one specific reason, as far as I'm concerned, particularly now that Logan's gone, which is I tried to get a lot of my friends to watch it first season, and they said, I don't care about anybody in the show. I hate them all. And so now you gotta I don't know if anybody's rooting for anybody. Like, is there like a lot of people out there watching like, oh my gosh, I hope, Shiv gets it finally. And
right.
I mean, she's a train wreck.
I'm just rooting for Roman and Jerry. I'm rooting for Roman and Jerry to get together.
As a romantic couple.
Yes, that's what I'm rooting for.
Yes. Well, that's the spinoff, right?
Yeah. I hope that would be great.
They moved to a farm in upstate New York, and no, I'm just kidding. But I think that's a more difficult thing, because obviously with The Sopranos, we didn't want to see, it's just like Vito Corleone. We did not want to see Tony die.
Right.
We wanted to see Tony and Carmela survive that marriage. And after Whitecaps at the end of season 4, you never could have imagined it, but they brought it together.
Right.
So there were lots of things that we were rooting for. We wanted Frank Leonard to be killed off. I'm not sure, what do you, you're a fan of Succession. So let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. What are you rooting for these next remaining episodes?
I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm a sap, but I do feel like Kendall went through so much, killing the kid, and then his father uses that against him. I'd like to see Kendall maybe get a little bit of positive something in his life.
Well, it would be nice, though, if it was somewhat of a meritocracy, which is that Kendall would rise to a level of expertise and capability. Like, he was sitting there with Roman and Shiv, and the three of them were doing that ridiculous Monopoly-like game. Well, let's do 8-5, let's do 9. Why can't Kendall be somebody who says, look, let's really look at this for a minute. And I think Nan Pierce is mind fucking us. Let's call her bluff, or let's show a little bit of Logan in Kendall, whatever. I just hope that whoever gets, the big chair, so to speak, they've earned it.
But it doesn't seem like, I would be surprised if it ends with one of them getting the big chair. I think there's got to be some sort of twist.
Right. But that's my point, which is we're not really rooting for anyone or anything. Right.
Cousin Greg, Tom, Connor.
Well, Cousin Greg and Tom go off and have their affair finally. Yeah. But no, I'm just kidding. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that is, and that makes it, I think, a higher bar and more interesting.
Yeah, I do like sort of how they set up, like Shiv, Roman, Kendall against Jerry and Carl and who's that third kid? Frank. Yeah. I mean, I think that's interesting. That could be interesting for a couple of episodes. So we'll see what happens. I cannot let you go without asking you if you have any information on the new season of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
It's wrapped. They had a great wrap party. It was fun. I think, I'm not sure if it's this fall or not, but I have a feeling it might be this fall, but 12 is in the can. and everybody feels good about it. And I wouldn't bet against 13 not happening.
Yeah, wasn't there some crazy Twitter thing where someone went on Twitter and said this is the last season, and they deleted it and took it back? And
Oh, please. They did that beginning with season 8, season 9. There was a what, a 4-year gap at one point, or a 5-year
yeah,
gap. I mean, until Larry, God forbid, leaves this hemisphere,
yeah,
I would never say he might have a heart lung machine next to him while he does season 17. And HBO will always put it on.
yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been great. And Richard Lewis was, knock on wood, healthy enough to participate in 12.
Excellent,
So
excellent.
that's great. And can't wait. Even when Curb is not at its best, you still watch it, you still root for it, you can't
100%.
you just can't deny it.
I'll watch anything Larry does. That's it. I don't care. Season
Yeah,
50, give it to me. I'll be there.
absolutely.
Jim, I appreciate it. Thanks for all the insight, and appreciate the conversation. You coming on. Be well.
Thanks for having me, bud.
All right. Take care. All right. Joining me now for our weekly Train of Thought segment from WFAN Radio in New York, SNY TV in New York, my buddy Sal Licata. Sal, how are you?
Good. Another nice week on hand of wild action across New York sports at the very least. Are you in the NBA playoffs? Are we getting into that or what?
Very much so. Very much so. In fact, I have to say, I struggled to find topics to discuss outside of the NBA playoffs.
Really?
It's weird. It's a busy time of year, but I couldn't find a ton of topics to get into. Plus, I'm in a very bad mood. I lost my AirPods today, and the middle of my upper lip is the size of a golf ball for some reason. I don't know why. So I'm struggling.
I couldn't tell.
I'm struggling right now.
How'd you lose your iPod? Your AirPods?
It's because I had to take my dad to the doctor this week. Went to St. Francis, the heart hospital, and somehow sitting in it must have fallen out of my pocket. And I was so when that happens, it just I had to run to Best Buy and get new ones.
Whoa.
It's just it's demoralizing. It's demoralizing when that happens. There's a feeling
How many times did this happen to you? Because I remember years ago we had this conversation.
It's I'm either on my 4th or 5th pair.
Oh my God.
And it makes me feel like a piece of shit for some reason that I keep losing them.
What do they cost? $100?
Well, these were 100, yeah.
Okay, all right. I don't use them. I don't even like the loose ones. I hate it. Although now I have no choice but to go loose.
So you drive. So wait, if you're on the train listening to music, what do you use?
I use Bose whatever wireless,
right.
but I don't want wireless for that exact fucking reason. I don't want to lose them, but you have to go wireless now. It's annoying.
No, I disagree. Wireless, it's on me. It's on me for being irresponsible. I think I love these. I'm so glad they're, wireless is the way to go.
You got to charge them, make sure that you get this charging. It's just,
I've never had a problem with that. It's me. It's my own irresponsibility. I am the problem, and that's what makes me mad.
Right. Nothing gets anybody more aggravated than when they are at fault. Why are you so angry? You screwed something up. That's
right. It's like, get it together and check to make sure you have them. And what pissed me off is I brought them and I never even used them. That's what pissed me off.
Yeah.
And now I have this lip issue. I couldn't find a ton of things from the week to get into here. Obviously, there's the Draymond Green situation, which here's my thing about the Draymond Green situation. I don't understand how there are people who are saying a suspension isn't warranted. He stomped on someone. And then everyone wants to pull in was it that hard? Where is he supposed to go? Here's the thing. He stomped on the guy. That's it. Period. End of sentence. You have to suspend him.
He got 1 game, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Which that's what it should have been.
All right, fine. You couldn't give him nothing for what he did, but I did think Sabonis was acting significantly. I don't want to hear that he had a bruised sternum. That was a wrestling move type. I don't think he kicked him or stomped him on, deliberately as hard as he could there.
Right, but see, so whether Sabonis is hurt, not hurt, acting, not acting, is irrelevant. The guy stomped on him. So it doesn't, he shouldn't have to be injured in order for there to be some sort of suspension.
That's true.
And you mentioned the NBA playoffs. I will say Sacramento on Saturday night was one of the best things I've seen in sports in a while. That place was completely bonkers. It was wild. And they had the same thing going on Monday night for their game 2. And what a fun team to watch as well.
So I had no idea the Kings were any good, whatever, right? And I used to remember, the Kings when they were in their heyday in the playoffs every year. But I was watching the Knicks Kings, the one trip that the Knicks made to Sacramento, and I was like, holy shit, like that place is unbelievable. And and they blew the Knicks out. And then I started to pay a little more attention to them. Obviously, they're a good team, one of the better teams in the West. But because of that atmosphere is why I bet them. And I have not even been betting. But I did dive in a little bit here with the NBA playoffs, and I bet the Kings for the series. I bet the Kings in game 1. That atmosphere is unbelievable. You're right. It is fun to watch.
That was a topic I was thinking of diving into as Sal's return to betting, but I didn't know if you wanted to go there.
No, we could. I mean, why? We talked about I have not bet. I was in a little bit of a hole, and then I bet the Super Bowl and hit big and started to dig out of that big hole. And now I'm up, baby. The Knicks, the Kings, the Rangers last night, even a little Yankees on Saturday afternoon.
Well, so here's how I knew Sal was back to betting. Saturday afternoon, I get a text from him like bashing the Yankees. I'm like, oh, Sal's got a wager. And then, of course, it's not just that Sal has a wager. The response is, I got the Yankees run line, Yankees money line, Yankees over. I'm like, oh my God, back with a vengeance. He doesn't. You don't dip the toes in the pool. Diving right into the deep end.
I dive right in. There is no dipping. If I'm going to do it, I do it. And it was come on, that was as easy a bet as there ever has been. Yankees lost 2 in a row to the Twins, who they never lose to. Of course, they were going to win that one.
Let me give you my betting story of the weekend because this still stings. I still can't believe this. So for game 1 of Lakers Grizzlies on Saturday or Sunday, I forgot which day it was. I put together like one of these crazy parlays that, you hit 1 out of 100 and, and I do it for low odds. It's not even worth it. But I put together this parlay. Over 12.5 points for Austin Reeves. He came through. He had like 20 something. Over 20 points for LeBron. Not a problem. Over 4.5 assists for LeBron. No problem. He had 5, I think.
Right.
At least 1 3-pointer for Austin Reeves. Hit it. At least 1 3-pointer for John Morant. Hit it. At least 5 rebounds for Jaren Jackson Jr. Hit it. So those were 6 that were done. It was a 7-play parlay. I needed one more for the parlay to hit. I needed John Morant over 20 points. He had 18 and then broke his hand in the 4th quarter. Oh. Those are the ones that make you say, I need a break.
Right. Well, I was going to say, I need to stop, but you've been having those for what, 35 years or so. No, that's brutal. That is
stop. That's funny.
But that's what happens.
It's funny. It gives you pause because if you want, I find it fun to bet some of these NBA parlays, same game parlays, blah, blah. But you do have to account if you're going to put Anthony Davis in a over 20 points, over 10 rebounds, you have to factor in that the guy's hurt all the time. Like these,
right.
We saw it with Hero from the Heat left the game. But for John Morant to have 18 points and all I need is 1 basket and I win a 7-leg parlay and then he breaks his hand. I don't know if it's broken. I think he's playing tonight or these games. Whatever. No,
I think he's out. I think he's out for. I thought I saw before he's out. But 2 quick things for you on that. Number 1, you used to rip me for being parlays all the time. You said it's a sucker's bet. Now you're betting the same game parlays.
It is a sucker's bet. You got to be a schmuck to bet them.
The other thing is, how does it? Because that to me, in my mind, I have a major problem trying to grasp all of that in one game. How does that impact you watching the game where you're rooting for this guy to hit a 3, this guy to get 5 assists?
I'm rooting for all those guys to do what they're supposed to do.
Right, but you're not watching the game the way that you would normally. You're rooting for individuals to, right?
I'm watching it. Nah, not really.
Okay.
Not really.
Interesting. I don't know. I don't make those bets.
The other thing, did you watch? Because I talk about these every week because they're so good. The A&E biography on the Iron Sheik this week.
Oh no, I'm actually behind. I started the Dusty one. I have not finished that yet. There's too much stuff going on. I did watch Succession, which I thought was, remember we talked last week and I was like, why'd they kill him off? Whatever. But it was I thought, great episode.
Underlined or crossed out?
Dude, so can you help me understand? I watched that like 3 times. What is this for? What is the significance of it?
Logan, who died, wrote
right
up on a piece of paper that he wanted Kendall to take over the company.
And that's what that was on the phone?
No, on the paper. On the paper.
Right, but he was looking on his phone at the end. That
was something different. On the paper, well, yeah, he had a picture of the paper and then he blew up the image. There's controversy about whether Logan crossed that out because obviously Kendall turned on him, or if it was underlined.
Now we're talking about the same scene at the very end before he makes the decision.
It was a theme throughout the episode. It wasn't just at the end.
Right.
On the piece of paper, it said Kendall in charge, and they didn't know if it was crossed out or underlined. And that was referenced many times. And then at the end, he's on his phone and he blows it up. He blows up the image of the piece of paper to see if it was.
Right. I think it's crossed out. Or at least in that image, I thought it was crossed out.
Yeah.
And he's one of my favorite characters, though, Kendall Roy. I love him.
He is definitely a character. It's going to be interesting to see how they wrap it up.
Anyway, I did not see the Dusty or Iron Sheik, but I'm looking forward to watching that. Maybe I'll catch up this weekend. Sheik was good too.
I didn't see it. I wanted to know if you saw it because I watched Succession. I wasn't taking any chances. I was watching Succession that night, and the NBA playoffs were going on, and I said, no fooling around. So.
That's the thing. Knicks and Rangers for me. Islanders throw on top of that. Right. Mets and Yankees. There's no time.
Yeah, so I said I didn't have a ton of topics. Do you? What's been a big topic for you this week? I mean, I feel like it's been, you have your NBA playoffs, but I don't feel like there's all these issues we got to tackle.
Honestly, it's been weird. It's been weird for me because I've been on in the evening, so I'm on. The Mets are on the West Coast, so I'm doing shows while the Mets are on, which pisses me off. I hate that. But it's also Knicks and Rangers playoffs. There's a playoff game every night, coming on after the Yankee game. Nets are playing too. So there really hasn't been one theme. I guess next week it'll start to turn back toward Aaron Rodgers and the Jets and the NFL draft.
Right.
But for now, it's kind of just like a mishmash of reacting to these games here.
I can't believe you just mentioned Rodgers because I was dying to bring this up. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to bring this up and I'm not going to get involved. But now you brought up Aaron Rodgers, and I feel like it's a tease. But because I know you don't pay attention to this stuff. But did you see today on Twitter what he did on Twitter today?
No.
Okay, so Robert Kennedy Jr. is a politician. You probably we're not familiar. Anyway, he put on Twitter that he's going to be running as a Democrat for president. Fine, no issues. And Aaron Rodgers, okay. No, Robert Kennedy. Yeah.
Oh,
he's
Kennedy.
married. He's actually married to Cheryl Hines.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I love her.
Yeah. So Aaron Rodgers. Now the guy is a controversial figure because he's a big anti-vaxxer. But take that out. So anyway, Rodgers retweet. So the guy said something like in his tweet, "Hand me a sword. I'm gonna run. I need all the help I can get, or something, whatever." So Rodgers retweets it with an emoji of a sword. Now, that's no problem.
Right. He's helping his guy, right. Robert, here.
But now cut to, I don't know, either next time he's on McAfee or on Twitter or when he's going to, I can't believe I got so much attention for endorsing him. It's coming. Don't give me attention, but I'm going to do everything I can to get attention is such a tired act with Aaron Rodgers, and he never stops. It's
okay.
If you don't want attention, if you don't want attention, don't publicly endorse a candidate. But if you're going to publicly endorse a political candidate, no matter who it is, people are going to react. But then then he's going to be the victim, oh my God, I can't believe I can't even say who I want to run. Oh my God.
But why can't we Just let him endorse who he wants to. Why does it got to be? Is it going to be a bad thing now because he's endorsing an anti-vaxxer?
No. He can. No matter if any athlete of his stature goes on Twitter and endorses an athlete,
there's going to be blowback.
Half the people are going to agree with him, and half the people are not.
But that's like anything you tweet. I mean,
right. Yeah. But then he complains about, I don't want this attention. Why are people giving me attention? Oh my God, it's ridiculous.
Right. Well, he can't complain about it. You're right. After that,
that's my point. You can go on there and if you're someone of his stature and you endorse any political candidate, you have to know that you're going to get blowback from people. It has nothing to do with the candidate. It has nothing to do with Democrat, Republican. If an athlete endorses, if an athlete went on Twitter and said, I love Joe Biden, half the people on Twitter are going to tell him he's an idiot.
Right.
So it's not the person you're endorsing. You can do it, but then just don't complain now when someone's going to say, like, why would you endorse that guy? And that's what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. I also think, again, I've said this before. I do think he's going to end up on the Jets, but as each day passes, if I was a Jet fan, I'd be like, "What's the deal here?"
I think they are.
He doesn't want to come here anyway. I mean, he's only coming here to spite the Packers. So
I don't know if that's true. I mean, I do think.
Well, he was 90. He said himself he was 90% retired.
Yeah.
Then he went in the house.
Yeah, I mean, but then he came out and he felt like he wanted to play. So I don't think
exactly.
Yeah. Well, what, you never felt like one way at one moment and then, change your mind the next? I mean,
not by locking myself in the dark for 4 days.
90% is not 100%. And even if he was 100%, we've seen, look at fucking Tom Brady. So Tom Brady can change his mind like that and nobody's going to
but he's solely coming back to stick it to the Packers. He's not coming back because he's not coming back because he wants to win a championship for the New York Jets. He could give two shits about the New York Jets.
Oh, I think he wants to play. I think he wants to still play.
I think he wants to show the Packers that they mess. He is, to this day, still completely angry that they drafted Jordan Love, because
he should be.
He still mentions that. I mean, you got to get over it.
Would you be angry with it?
No, I would. He didn't lose his job.
Yeah, but they hurt him from potentially building a Super Bowl team because the knuckleheads are drafting a quarterback that's not going to see the field for 3 years.
Well, then why did he resign there 3 years ago?
Well, why would they draft a young quarterback though? Like, I don't get it.
Because the guy was old.
Yeah,
he was old.
I think, like, if you ask me where I think he wants to be, I think he wants to be in Green Bay. But I don't think he's going to the Jets. I just think he wants to play, and the Jets are the best opportunity for him.
Well, he has no choice because the Packers wouldn't trade him in the NFC.
Right.
And there's no one in the AFC that wanted him except for the Jets.
Right.
So,
and his buddy Hackett is there, so that'll be good. It's not like the Jets don't have any weapons.
If you would have said to Aaron Rodgers when he got out of the dark house for 4 days and said, Aaron, you can play for any single team in the NFL you want. He's not picking the Jets.
Well, who do you think he'd pick?
The Niners.
All right. I mean, there's not many, though.
The Bears. He would want to go and he would want to be in the NFC and stick it to the Packers. But the Packers said, we're not trading him in the NFC. They don't want to deal with him in a conference title game or whatever.
I don't think the Jets are a bad spot. Like, I think they have all the pieces in place. They just need him. So I don't think it's a bad spot.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I mean, the Jets have some young talent. They are loaded up defensively. Now, I don't love their coach, but they hired his best buddy there, the offensive coordinator Hackett. So I mean, he was very, what's the word? Not difficult, because that's not the word, but I don't know. He was constantly complaining about in Green Bay about, I want to have a say in this and I want to have it do this, and now he's going to a franchise that, like, for 95% of their existence has been an embarrassment. I mean, I don't know. You can't argue that. Yeah.
I don't know. I think the AFC is loaded. I mean, the Chiefs are still the cream of the crop. I think the Bengals are still better with the Jets without Rodgers. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Listen, is he an improvement over Zach Wilson? Of course. Is he going to play well because he's motivated to piss off Green Bay? Yes. But, to say the Jets are going to be in the Super Bowl, I'm not going there. But,
well, the Packers weren't in the Super Bowl. So, I mean.
Well, exactly. Exactly. So it'll be, it'll just be interesting to see when that finally goes down.
Well, that's the thing. I just want it to end. For the love of God, please just make it end. Like, is he going to be a Jet or not? They seem to think it's going to happen. Let's just make it happen. You stop dragging this thing out.
I guess the question, and I don't know the answer, in terms of the draft cap, this, blah, blah, blah. If he didn't get traded in those 4 days of the draft, let's say the draft ends now and he's still on the Packers, what does that mean? I mean, does that mean it's still definitely going to happen? Like,
I would be stunned if he is not traded to the Jets prior to the draft. They cannot be messing around because part of the deal is going to be draft picks this year. It's not going to be the number one, but it's going to be draft picks this year. So without a trade for Rodgers prior to the draft, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know
That's what I think. Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's what I'm saying. If he doesn't get traded at the draft, what does that mean? Because yeah, for sure. All right. Well, next week's the draft, so we could talk about that a little bit. And that's it. We managed to find some topics.
I'll try to watch the Sheik and Dusty bio.
Yeah, I gotta watch it too.
All right.
All right. So have a good week.
You too. Talk to you later.
All right. Take it easy. All right. My thanks to Jim Miller and Sal Licata. If you are not an SI Media with Jimmy Traina subscriber, please subscribe, whether you're on Apple, Spotify, no matter where you're listening. Hit the subscribe button, leave a review. We'll read it on an upcoming episode. And if you missed any recent episodes, check them out in the archives. Jim Nance from CBS, Andrew Marchand from the New York Post, Cody Rhodes from the WWE, Kyle Brandt, Richard Jefferson, Iron Eagle, all recent guests on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. So give those a listen if you did not yet. And like I said, subscribe, rate, and review. All right, we'll see you next week. Stay safe and take care.